You walked into your annual review today. You spent the last 3 weeks preparing for this moment. You pulled together every metric, every win, every late night and weekend you sacrificed for this company. Your boss leans back in his chair, tells you the word exceptional more than once, and slides a paper across the table. 3%, that's it. 3%. Which on to $60,000 salary means you're taking home an extra $125 a month before taxes. Meanwhile, your rent went up 8%, your groceries cost 15% more than they did last year, and your health insurance premiums climbed double digits again. But you got a raise, so you smile and say thank you, because what else are you supposed to do? If this is already hitting different, subscribe now. What I'm about to break down next is stuff most people never figure out in their entire careers. So let's start with the uncomfortable truth that almost nobody in the corporate world will say out loud. That 3% raise you received, it had nothing to do with your performance. Not really. Not in the way you think. The number was decided months before you ever sat down in that review chair. In fact, in most large companies, salary increase budgets are finalized in early January. Finance teams calculate total payroll across the organization, multiply by roughly 3%, and lock in a company-wide pool. Done. That's the ceiling. Everything else, the review meetings, the performance ratings, the feedback sessions, all of it happens afterward. You are being evaluated against a budget that was set before you even started working on the projects they're about to praise you for. And here's where it gets even more frustrating. Because it's not just about the money being predetermined. It's about how the ratings themselves are engineered to match the math. Most corporations use something called a forced distribution curve. Essentially, leadership decides in advance what percentage of employees can fall into each performance category. Only a fixed slice of the workforce, often around 10%, is allowed to receive the highest rating. The vast middle, usually around 70%, lands in the satisfactory or meets expectations category, and someone always has to be in the bottom bucket. Think about what that actually means for you personally. You could be on a team of 8 people doing extraordinary work, but if only 10% can receive a top rating, the math rounds down to 0 for your team. Nobody on that team gets the highest designation, so your outstanding quarterly results get rewarded with the same rating as the guy who takes 45-minute bathroom breaks twice a day. You both get meets expectations, you both get 3%. Same number, same raise, completely different levels of contribution. Because the rating wasn't measuring your performance, it was filling in a predetermined distribution. And who actually lands in the top rating on any given year. Often it's the person with the most institutional seniority, the one who would create a legal headache if passed over again, or the one with the most social capital with decision makers. Performance is a factor, sure, but it's rarely the deciding factor. The distribution just has to work out on paper. The numbers have to average to 3% across the board. Once that math checks out, everyone moves on with their day. Now let's talk about what this looks like across time, because this is where things go from annoying to genuinely alarming. Most people don't realize just how much compounding works against them when their raises consistently lag behind real economic conditions. Over the last several years, inflation has averaged somewhere between 4 and 5% annually. Meanwhile, the standard merit increase has hovered right around 3%. That gap might sound small, but it isn't. What that means in practical terms is that your purchasing power is quietly shrinking every single year, even as your nominal paycheck number goes up. You're technically earning more dollars, but those dollars buy less than the ones you earned 3 years ago. Real wages, adjusted for inflation, are going backward while the number on your pay stub moves forward. The company never cut your salary. They just let inflation do it for them. And while that's happening to you, something very different is happening at the top of the organization. Executive compensation doesn't live inside the same merit matrix. It doesn't pull from the same pool. The people sitting in the executive suite have compensation structures built around equity, stock options, performance bonuses tied to revenue targets, and long-term incentive plans that can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars above and beyond base salary. In years when standard employee raises average 3%, total executive compensation packages can easily climb 20, 30, or even higher when you factor in stock appreciation and annual bonus payouts. Different rules, different pool, different universe entirely. This income gap between the people at the very top and the people doing the daily operational work of keeping a company running has grown dramatically over the past few decades. It wasn't always this extreme. At one point, the ratio between what a chief executive earned and what the average employee earned was in the double digits. Today, at many large corporations, that ratio is in the hundreds. Some organizations have CEO to median worker pay gaps exceeding 300 to 1. What that means is that while you're getting $125 a month added to your paycheck, the person running the company might be seeing compensation increases worth more than your entire annual salary. Every single year. Now here's something that tends to make people feel genuinely sick when they first hear it. That person who started at your company last month, fresh out of a competitive job search, sitting 2 desks down from you, there's a real chance they're making significantly more than you right now. Not because they're more skilled, not because they've contributed more, but because they were hired at current market rates while you were hired years ago at whatever the market rate was back then, and have only received compounding 3% increases since. Those increases do not keep pace with how fast market compensation actually rises. So the longer you stay loyal to a single employer, the further behind current market rate you often fall. The system isn't built to reward tenure. It just creates the illusion that it does. The data on this is striking. When you look at salary growth among people who change jobs every 2 to 3 years versus people who stay at the same company long term, the job hoppers consistently come out ahead in total compensation over a career. Someone who starts at $55,000 and makes 2 strategic moves over 4 years, each time landing a 20 to 25% increase, can end up close to $90,000 or more. Someone who started at the same salary, stayed put, worked hard, received annual 3% increases, and did everything they were told to do to earn their next raise. After 6 years, they're looking at roughly $65,000. That gap compounds over a lifetime. It affects retirement savings, home buying power, investment capacity, everything. And here's the thing your manager knows but will never volunteer to tell you. If you go out, find a competing offer, and bring it back, suddenly the budget constraints that prevented a meaningful raise magically disappear. You get a counteroffer. Maybe they close 80 or 90% of the gap. The money was always there. It was just being conserved until the moment it became necessary to spend it. And that moment is only triggered when you demonstrate you're about to leave. The system is built to hold the line until you force the issue. Your loyalty isn't being rewarded. Your silence is being leveraged. There's also a consequence that comes with forcing that conversation. The moment you bring outside leverage to the table, something shifts internally. You get the counteroffer, you might even stay, but you've now been tagged as someone who shopped around, someone who might leave. And organizations quietly begin preparing contingencies for people in that category. You might get offered a retention bonus to keep you in place, something that sounds generous on the surface, but often comes with a repayment clause if you leave before a certain time period. It's a financial leash more than a reward. And in the background, the hiring process for a potential replacement quietly begins anyway. The information asymmetry here is not accidental. Companies have compensation data. They know what your role pays in your market. They know where you fall relative to peers inside and outside the organization. They have access to salary surveys and benchmarking data that's updated regularly. What they don't do is share that with you. Salary ranges are kept confidential under the framing of professional etiquette and personal privacy. But the practical effect of that confidentiality is that you cannot negotiate from a position of real information. You're playing poker and they can see your cards. You cannot see theirs. Some cities and states have started requiring employers to post salary ranges and job listings, and the results have been illuminating. When ranges become visible, current employees discover all at once that new hires are being brought in at the top of bands that existing employees haven't even reached after years of service. The transparency triggers conversations that companies have spent decades trying to avoid. Because the moment the information is equal on both sides of the table, the leverage shifts. Now, I want to zoom out for a second and talk about the broader life implications of all of this. Because this isn't just a financial conversation, it's really a conversation about the choices we make when we don't have the full picture. Most people follow the traditional script because it seems like the safe and practical path. Go to school, get a reliable job, work hard, prove your worth, climb the ladder, receive your annual increases, save for retirement, and eventually reach a comfortable life. That script sounds reasonable, and for a lot of people it does produce a stable, decent outcome. Nobody is arguing against stability, but stability and opportunity are different things. When you accept the 3% framework without questioning it, you're making a trade you may not fully understand. You're trading the discomfort of negotiation, job searching, and uncertainty for the comfort of predictability. And that's a legitimate choice. But it should be a conscious choice, not a default one made, because nobody ever explained how the system actually works. The cost of that trade in real dollars over a full career can be enormous. The wealthiest people, statistically speaking, did not get there through annual merit increases. They got there through equity, ownership stakes, business income, investment returns, or by consistently positioning themselves at the market rate for their skills. Sometimes that means changing employers. Sometimes it means starting something. Sometimes it means negotiating aggressively and repeatedly. What it almost never means is staying in the same role at the same company for a decade and trusting that loyal service will be financially rewarded in proportion to contribution. This is the thing employers absolutely do not want you internalizing, because the system as it exists depends on workers not fully understanding it. It depends on the performance review feeling meaningful. It depends on you believing the rating process is objective and that your 3% was a genuine reflection of your contribution. It depends on compensation being treated as a private, even slightly taboo topic among colleagues. The information gap is the mechanism. Remove it and the leverage flips. So, what does all of this mean practically? It means a few things worth sitting with. First, your annual performance review is largely a formality. The number was decided before you walked in. That doesn't mean you should stop performing, but it means you should stop expecting performance alone to dramatically change the outcome within a single company year over year. Second, the market is your most accurate salary data point, not your last raise plus 3%. Knowing what your role actually pays elsewhere is not disloyalty. It's information, and having that information puts you in a fundamentally different negotiating position. Third, switching jobs strategically, not impulsively but with intention, is how most high earners have accelerated their income. Not by abandoning companies, but by understanding that the external market corrects for the gaps that internal compensation systems create, and then deliberately using that correction. Fourth, and this one is harder but important, the gap between what you earn and what executives at your company earn is not purely a function of their superior value or contribution. It is substantially a function of compensation structure. They earn equity and bonuses and long-term incentives that compound with the market. You earn salary that compounds at 3%. Even if your performance is exceptional, the vehicle matters. Salary has a ceiling that equity does not. And fifth, the wealth disparity between the lowest paid and highest paid people inside a single organization often isn't visible because compensation is kept confidential. But at publicly traded companies, some of that data is disclosed. And what it reveals consistently is that the distance between those 2 points has grown dramatically over time and continues to grow. The system isn't broken in the sense that it's failing to do what it's designed to do. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's just that what it's designed to do doesn't align with the story most employees are told about how hard work and loyalty get rewarded. None of this means your situation is hopeless. None of this means you should become cynical or transactional in your work. It means you should be clear-eyed. Do exceptional work because it builds skills and reputation, not because it guarantees a proportional raise at your current employer. Understand the market for your skills and check it regularly. Have conversations, even uncomfortable ones, about compensation. Build toward ownership of something, whether that's equity in a company you work for, investments, a side business, something that isn't capped by a merit matrix. And make your career decisions with full information rather than assumptions about how the system works. The 3% raise isn't a conspiracy. It's a budget decision. But it's a budget decision that compounds against you over time when you don't fully understand its implications. The people who understand this earliest tend to do the most about it. And the ones who figure it out mid-career often look back at a decade of salary growth they can never fully recover. You worked hard this year, you probably deserved more than 3%. And now you know exactly why you didn't get it. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. If this video opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more content that cuts through the comfortable narratives and tells you how things actually work, subscribe. I do this every week and I'm just getting started.